are probably the most difficult time of year because for so many people, that's a time when they have experienced violence, they have experiences trauma in their homes, and they often are really acutely aware of the lack of resources in their lives. So we have more families and more people in need this year than ever before. We actually have probably twice the numbers we ever had. We're in a housing crisis, a massive housing crisis in our city right now, and everybody's kind of stressed, as you guys I'm sure know, and so we're also seeing fewer donations, so anything you can give helps. We went to look easy front on the internet if you wanted to drop stuff off, food or gifts for children. Al has done an amazing job of posting the families and the gifts that people are needing. So follow us on social media, follow Al to find out if you want to sponsor a family or just donate something today. And really appreciate your support. And I appreciate Ardith for supporting us and supporting eFry, and always has been a partner in we've been working towards change together for a long time. So I thank you to all of you, and this is a wonderful and exciting night. So thank you.
So hi, I'm Ardith Wynot. I wrote the book, but it's not full of just my stories. It's full of stories of folks who are in this room and some folks who couldn't be in this room.
Can you ask
some
Jay
folks
if he
who
can?
are still incarcerated, and some folks.
So, Ardith, I'm so proud of you being here tonight. People don't know this, but the actual first time I went into a prison was with Ardith, the infamous Nova Creative Writing Group. And I often say that, when we were driving back, I remember you saying to me kind of like, because we were really young, like this was before we all started on this. And I remember you saying to me, you asked me about how it was, and I was like, it was fine. You're like, well, one of the women in there, like you just told me about it. And I was like, I actually don't care. Like no, that didn't bother me because we were like writing together, and it was just, I remember us having that conversation about where we set our line and like how do you deal with harm and how do you actually feel when you're in those scenarios. And that was like the first time. So it's really nice to be here tonight and see you in your triumph with this book, which I know was a lot of long, hard work and you struggled for. So yay, everybody give Ardith. T comes into prison a proud white supremacist. He's got swastikas tattooed on his neck and KKK on the knuckles on his fist. And the last prison he was in, there's a guy he already killed. But there's a black guy on the ring. And somehow they start to chill. He says, just cover that shit up around me if we're going to coexist. And they're both doing life over blood that they have spilled. And slowly, somehow, their friendship starts to build. Well, T gets transferred out, and from the depths he sends a letter. Thank you for your friendship, for helping me be better. He says, my sister was gang raped at a party by black guys, and I decided every single black guy was the same in my eyes. I was so angry, my hate was twisting me inside. Thank you for showing me another way. Thank you for saving me. If we've never struggled to make a change, what do we know of bravery? What do we know about transformation in these places where we're breaking people down? D is waiting in the hole. It's been 7 or 8 months now. One day he loses it in his cell and starts trashing everything around, and then he hears a knock. And he thinks, what now? I can't take any more. This pressure has to stop. And a hand reaches through his slot. And D's on edge, thinking it's someone here to take a shot. The guy's high up in the gang, a soldier at the top, but he opens up his fist. And there's a jade and black crucifix. And all he says is simply, I thought you needed this. What do we know of human kindness and the places it exists? When we sentence people to life and say their humanity's eclipsed, and we send them behind the walls and condemn them to the abyss. And massacre toast bread and hides it in the fridge. He grew up on a remote reserve with no food when he was a kid. Captain Crunch at Christmas was what his mother knew of gifts, and uncles struggling with their own addictions who taught him how to fix when residential schools left generations broke in bits. And the other guys bug him now because he only owns one lime green pair of sweats. So when someone offers him $20, that's as good as it gets. They ask him to heat up butter in the microwave and throw it in the face, and he gets dragged off the solitary, but for him it's not a waste because $20 is enough to get a couple weeks canteen. What do we know of desperation when our stomach's full when we go to sleep? What do we know of wounding where the trauma runs so deep and so we lock people down, never allowed out into the open? But the light gets through the cracks in the places that we're broken, so many lives that disappear and their stories are unspoken. So we never hear of resilience, of creativity, of hope. I'm reading Facebook and I see a status that touches me profoundly. I love my murderer friends. One of the women proclaims proudly, and everyone reacts with horror and disgust. But she says, I spent years in with these women, the only ones I could trust, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I'm not going to abandon. You don't know what's inside people when you just judge them at random, and I know what she means. When murderer is the worst label, when we couple it with love, it makes our judgments seem unstable. And so we condemn a woman loving deeper than we're able, as if murderer and loved one could never be connected. What do we know of affection when we don't live together in oppression? Everything I know about forgiveness, it was prisoners taught the lesson. And I keep suggesting to a teenage prisoner he go outside for exercise. He'll get sick, I tell him. He'll disappear inside depression. And finally he tells me that a year after he'd been inside, he was let out in the yard and he bent and touched a blade of grass. And then he overheard a conversation between guards. They said, that kid's been in so long, he's happy just to touch the ground. And after that, it was too hard, so he just stays on his range now. What do we know of freedom when we've never been held down? And there's a young Mi'kmaq man who calls me and tells me that he's fine, and then I link him to his mother, and he starts crying on the line, and he tells her he almost died because he drank hand sanitizer. What do we know of pain when numb's the only option for survival, and there are teenagers inside who are shaking on arrival, and I think that it's obscene that every courtroom has a Bible, and then we sentence human beings to places where if they're suicidal, they strip them of their clothes and throw them into solitary confinement. And once you get a record, that's a judgment that is final. There's no supports when you get out, so you're forced to repeat the cycle. What do we know of forgiveness when our vengeance still is primal? And there's so many minds going to waste, full of knowledge that is vital. Who knows if the cure for cancer is in a mind that's sitting idle, and in spite of their situation, they're still maintaining their humanity. I host a radio show with prisoners and people complain about profanity. And I tell them music is the only thing that helps them keep their sanity. And actually, I say, we have people calling in from solitary confinement to excuse them if they don't quite meet your standards of refinement. Or they're assigned to jobs in sweatshops making products on consignment, or they're deprived of medication and you want them to be silent. What do you know of self-expression when you never had to fight to write? And there are suicidal women forced to sleep without their mattresses, dehumanizing conditions seen as just everyday practices, and people talk of justice as if it's just a scale that balances, while families and communities are grieving all the absences if we've never sat inside a cell. What do we possibly know of damages? But I've seen things come out of prison that I would call miraculous. Love, forgiveness, resilience, generosity, and thankfulness. What I know of being human comes from being a prison activist. So to all my people doing time, thank you for making me compassionate. I'm like, I want to talk about R. Kelly, but that's not. I'll do this one, and then I'll get off stage. This is really old, but I do this all the time. I wrote this for the woman in Nova. One of the women asked me, do you have a poem about the shit that women go through in our lives and how we heal from it? And I said, I don't have that poem, but I'll write it for you. So this is that poem. You probably heard it, I don't. If you've done shit in your life, recognize, apologize. Then move forward and let it lie. If you got shit in your life, analyze. Then energize. Move yourself forward and let it lie. If they treat you like shit, strategize. Mobilize to get them out of your life. If he says you ain't shit, then realize he is speaking bullshit and lies and reprioritize. Know you deserve better than that and say your goodbyes. I know you have it in you, girl, to rise. I have seen other women come through these trials and you will survive. What doesn't kill us makes us wise. If they say you can't do shit, then organize. Don't be surprised when you discover how strong you are inside. The sky is the limit, so don't compromise. Don't let them cut you down to size. If you are feeling bad shit, then let yourself cry. Know that you are bigger than your shit and keep your eyes on the prize. If you think shit is more than you can bear, just hang on tight. White knuckle it through until help can arrive. I promise you, shit will work out all right. When you get a handle on shit, then memorize. Repeat to yourself, I am too great to minimize. My life means too much to jeopardize. Shit cannot fuck with me now because I am immunized. Say the worst shit was thrown at me and I am still alive. Say my shit is too powerful to be euthanized. Say that by not being beaten down by shit, I have advertised the next time that shit happens, I am desensitized. So I'm familiarized with your shit now so I can neutralize. You have exercised your worst shit and I'm still standing by. I can dust off that shit and hold my head up high. Say I have seen it all now, so I am qualified. Say you will not catch me with that same shit twice. Say I have decided to live so I can testify that there is no shit that can undermine. When you have made it through shit, then inspire. Don't give shit back to other people. Empathize. Because you have been through shit, you have the power to advise, give all the help you can provide. Know that coming through shit gives you the knowledge to guide. Remember, at the end of each tunnel, there is a light. Reach back and bring others alongside. Know that you are a goddess in disguise. Suffering through shit brings you close to divine. So I embrace all of my shit because it is mine. Come to terms with your shit and harmonize. So I'm not ashamed of the shit that I've done because it clarified. Acknowledge the shit that you've done, but then let it fly. Say I had to experience that shit to come through the fire. Don't go back to that shit, just let it expire. If you are caught up in shit, then override. If shit is bringing you down, then purify. If you got too much shit, then simplify. When you have dreams for the future, past shit don't apply. Remember, out of cocoons come butterflies. Visualize what you want and then actualize. Remember, your true value cannot be priced. And don't ever let shit demoralize. Because you are the shit, girl. So you can never be denied. Thank you, everybody.
Everybody warmed up now? Hey, I'm really, really excited that the next speaker agreed to join us here tonight. Someone I interviewed for the book, Kelly Donovan, who's a former police officer, also a survivor, and now a police whistleblower, and she's fighting for abolitionist projects in Ontario. She called me one day and she was like, you gotta talk to Carrie Ryan. My buddy's in Halifax now. She has this incredible story. So Carrie's story is not in the book. Carrie's story is one of those stories that needs to be told when we're standing in the mess of the world that is now and we're looking towards a more hopeful future. So I'd like to introduce Carrie Ryan, who is a survivor, former police officer, researcher, and a mom who's brought a special guest tonight, River.
Not sure how this is going to go. So Carrie, you're going to talk after Al Jones gives some poems. No pressure. I brought a lot of notes. I'm pretty nervous. We haven't really been out of the house in a long time. So thank you, Ardith, for your book, your contribution to the field, for facilitating this deeper discussion on domestic violence, violence against women and families, and creating space for survivors like myself to speak. I situate myself within this discourse, wearing lots of hats today. First and foremost, I am a survivor. I'm a settler, but I'm also a mother, a partner, a social worker, a researcher, and a former police officer. My message tonight is that our current responses to domestic violence are not good enough. They are perpetuating harm, they're perpetuating violence, and we need to do better for women, children, survivors, and families. Today is the last day of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and I'm pretty heartbroken this year about how intensely women have been fighting for their rights over the years, and how far we still have to go. Policing domestic violence is not the answer, and it only is serving to perpetuate violence. That's okay if she steals the show. Secretly, that's why I brought her. So about 20 years ago, when I set out to become a police officer, I did hear the stories about the old boys club, about the patriarchy, the misogyny, and after all, women police officers had already been speaking out for quite some time about violence in the workplace for years already, and I thought, well, we must be past this now, and this isn't going to happen to me. But it did. And I soon became a victim of gender-based violence in the workplace, of systemic and structural violence and abuse. The day I became a police officer was the proudest moment of my life at that point. It was a culmination of so much hard work and time and commitment to getting there. I was filled with so much joy and hope for my future, but it didn't last. Throughout the 5.5-year career I had on the job, while I was on the job, I experienced sexual violence, harassment, and bullying because I was a woman. And when I tried to speak up about the harm that was caused to me, people in the organization, I told these people in the organization who were supposed to support me and be there to protect me and the union, but instead I was retaliated against. Everything that I was experiencing, abuse and violence-wise, was doubled down on me, and I was left very vulnerable and terrified of losing my career, terrified of losing my livelihood and my ability to take care of myself. I know. And that's when he found me, in that state of vulnerability, and that's how he finds all his victims. And before I tell you about the police officer that I was having a relationship while the systemic violence within the police culture was being doubled down on me, I need to go back and tell you about the type of training I received as a police officer in responding to calls for domestic violence. Because I think it's important you know that I maybe received 3 hours of training when I was a brand new cadet, where it was explained to me that the evidence of domestic violence was physical, and if you were to respond to domestic violence, which is pretty much what we did all the time where I worked, was to respond to domestic violence. If someone had a mark on them, then you would arrest the other person. And that was basically it. The police that I worked with did not take time to be overly compassionate with people or try to understand or care about the context of the situations or even make referrals to support services. I didn't know she was going to bring the police officer. It's very ironic. There was an absolute lack of understanding and leadership for domestic violence investigations, and we did not use community resources the way that we should have, and there was no incentive to do better. The only incentive was to make more arrests so that you could show that you were more productive, so that the taxpayers would know that you were doing your job. And some of you might be thinking that, okay, well, things have changed, Carrie. You know, you were a police officer in 2004, and now it's 2021. Well, when I worked for Dr. Nancy Ross, who's sitting right there, only a couple of years ago, we were interviewing folks for a research study that looked at the domestic violence policies, talking to police officers, talking to survivors, talking to perpetrators. Very much the same story of what I had experienced was a very, very, very brief training on domestic violence, and it was basically, again, if you see physical violence, you arrest the other person. So policing domestic violence is not the answer, and it's only going to serve to perpetuate the violence against women, children, and families. And we need to do better. So back to my policing career. I tried to fight back against systemic violence while I was in the midst of it, and all that resulted was further abuse and being ostracized. I was made to feel alone, and that it was all my fault, and I didn't know what else to do but quit. And so I did. I quit in 2009. So I left out of self-preservation because I had lost hope I would ever be able to be who I wanted to be or build a career. And I was frustrated, I was scared, I was sad, I was heartbroken, and I still carry much of that with me today. And over the years, I've made excuses for how I was treated and for police officers in general by defending those good apples. But the truth, which has only come to me in the last couple of years, is the truth that those good apples were not in leadership and they did not support me. So when I left policing in 2009, my battle had only really begun. And once I escaped the abusive relationship with my employer, I found myself right in the thick of another abusive relationship with my partner, who was himself a police officer. And in the thick of abuse, I lacked the proper understanding of what domestic violence was, and I really had no idea how bad my situation was in that relationship. Abuse had become very normalized for me throughout my life, growing up in previous relationships, from the police force, and now with this partner. So it just seemed normal to me, and I believed that I deserved it. I believed that something had been wrong with me all my life to bring this behavior onto me. And so I certainly was not going to reach out for help, not from my family, not from my friends, not from the justice system. And things got really bad with this police officer, to the point where he tried to choke me, and to the point where I moved into a remote area with him and cut myself off from all the people and all my supports. But here's the good part of the story, is that I found community, and this is who I want to talk about tonight, is community. It was community that got me out of that situation, that helped me heal, and that supported me while I began to fight back. Community, for me, was the people in my world, through my work in the community, the people that were living there, community-based organizations. They helped me rebuild myself and educated me about my experience, and community has continued to be what has brought me to this point standing in front of you today. I continue to fight and speak out throughout the years, but there have been so many moments where I felt powerless and alone. And after a couple of years of leaving policing and the abusive relationship, after a couple of years, it took me to pull myself back together, to actually have a job, to actually be able to have a place to live and something to eat. I decided to try to fight back against the police department that had abused me. But I wasn't successful. I tried everything I could think of. I reached out to every governing agency that was supposed to help, to human rights, to lawyers, and I'm at constant dead end. Either I was told I had waited too long to come forward, that 2 years was too long to come forward, or I did not have the money to fight a police department in court. And I remember sitting downtown Vancouver, where I was living at the time, in this high-rise office with this way expensive lawyer, and him telling me that, if I was going to sign on with him, that I had to be prepared to somehow manage to get somehow come up with $100,000. That's what it was going to cost for me to take the police department to court on my own, was $100,000. And here I was single, on my own, didn't own anything, didn't own a car, didn't own anything, and where was I going to come up with $100,000? And so I had no other choice but to give up. And fighting against the abusive partner who was a cop, he convinced me to roll around me that I was mentally unstable and alcoholic, and I didn't feel I would be able to stand up to him in court. So I didn't pursue charges against him at the time. I did nothing until about 1.5 years ago. So 10 years later. And it wasn't until the pandemic hit that there was some sort of change. I don't know exactly what it was. I went on social media as a last resort, where I found other current and former policewomen who had gone through and were going through a lot of what I had been going through. And that started my healing journey. My ability to speak out, speak up, fight back, and I was made to believe that what was happening to me in policing wasn't my fault, and that I wasn't alone. The strength I found in connecting with others, with community, the policewoman was life-changing for me. I know. And so finally, with this connection with other people and community, I was able to work up the courage to try to charge the police officer that had tried to choke me. And about 1.5 years ago, I did reach out to the justice system, and I asked if we could go to domestic violence court, because I knew that was an option. I was told, well, no, we don't have that out here in BC. It's not an option. I said, I'm willing to go to restorative justice, because what I wanted was not for this guy to get locked up. I wanted this guy to get help, because long before me and long after me, he continues to prey on women and abuse them. And I just wanted him to get help. But what happened was I pressed charges, and there was 1 year of gaslighting and victim blaming, where they said to me, well, it's just going to be your word against his. There's no other witnesses. It was so long ago, your memory's not good enough. And eventually they said, there's not enough details in your memory, we're not going to charge him. So, see you later, sorry, have a nice day. If you want to file a complaint, you can file a complaint. And so again, just turned down. So I'm proud to say, though, that he did quit the RCMP, which I believe is the result of some pressure that I had put on the system around him. But he's still out there harming women. I know this for a fact. He's mad. He's mad at me. I agree with Ardith that much of the work that needs to be done in ending violence against women, children, and families is addressing those root causes of the violent behavior. Holding perpetrators accountable for their behavior. And that came out of the research with Dr. Ross. I was involved in it as well. Those that are committing to violence need to be at the center of the work that needs to be done. I believe everybody deserves a chance to get well and be well in their lives, and I don't know how that's supposed to look, but I know we need to do better, and what we're doing right now is not enough, and we cannot police our way out of domestic violence and family violence. Policing is very much the issue.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Just a note on feeling. So, I didn't give a content warning because the title of the event was that it was about homicide. But just a note to say that, it's perfectly good to have lots of yucky feelings and feelings of distress around what we're talking about tonight. I know there's a lot of survivors in the room tonight. So whatever you feel is okay and welcome in this space. If you need to leave this space, that is okay. It won't be weird or awkward. Just don't leave and be alone with whatever you're feeling. So I'm trying to make eye contact with all of you. We have a contract. Feelings will be felt in community with folks whomever you choose them to be. Okay. Can we call Elle Jones up for one encore? Well, I can. I just thought maybe folks wanted one more poem. You don't have to. You don't have to consent to doing one more poem, but you'll be disappointed.
I'm not going to not do things for you on your... Okay, I said I was going to do this before, because this is complex, right? I also have been a prison abolitionist since I was 13, but that doesn't mean I don't have feelings of anger. That doesn't mean that, I haven't been harmed. It doesn't mean that there's not people that sometimes this is really testing me and I believe in prison for you. I have to work on that. So I guess since we're talking about those complexities, I will do this a year of patriarchy for me. I don't know about the rest of you, like being harmed by the patriarchy, and this poem reflects some of this in those complexities. Everybody knew in Chicago. Everybody knew. When that limo pulled up outside the junior high school, and nobody stopped it. Nobody told. Some shoulders were shrugged and a couple eyes rolled. You know young girls these days. Their bodies look so old. But it was hidden in plain sight. Everybody seen. Age ain't nothing but a number. We all know what that means, but he was a powerful man and they were just teens, and even worse, they were black. So we laughed while he peed. She should have moved out of the way, we believe. He made white men money, so he didn't even lose his deal. Someone's meal ticket, so who cares how they feel? Collateral damage was all that black girls could be. Even Aaliyah didn't matter. And she was a star. If it was one little white girl, he'd have been behind bars, but the skin was too dark, so they got in his car, he took them shopping. And what happens after, that's just how things are. People went to that studio, saw girls in those rooms, and they closed the doors on it, but everybody knew, still booked him for concerts and bought his music on iTunes. Did we run up on his mansion, on his studio, on the street? Nah, people lined up outside the court saying R. Kelly should be free, and there were black women defending him. As far as I can see, what does that say about what we've been conditioned to be? Did we learn that behind closed doors of our own families? So we let him get away with saying, nah, that wasn't me. And those little black girls, they can't sing or make a beat. So he went on down the line, choosing his next fresh meat. Don't act like this is new. Don't act like you're surprised. We all know 13-year-old girls with 25-year-old guys. We all know outside the group homes the cars wait in lines. We all know predators at the mall eyeing girls up for size. We all know workers, traffic girls, right from the colored home. If that was one little white girl, those names would be known. If it was dozens of white girls, it would be written on the sky. But it's just little girls from the hood, so it passes us by, and if her abuser finds Christ, well, then he's forgiven. She's still being shamed for the pain that she's living. Pillar of the community, they'll say of him, now that he's saved. Ruined disgrace will be written on her grave because everybody knows. They just put it on us. How you out here looking so good with those tight jeans on your bum? Why are you dancing up on Drake with that grown woman bust? Why you get in that car if you wasn't a slut? You must have known. You must have wanted. You're practically adult. And we're called ratchet bitches, hoes, or a mutt, and we only have value if someone gets a cut. It's not like it's a secret. It isn't undercovers. If people have anything to say, they mostly blame the mothers, maybe blame the culture, anybody but the rapist. Even in our homes, we're supposed to be the safest. In our schools and in our churches, where nobody can save us. All around society, because everybody hates us, or at least just disregards us, expects us just to take it. So I've known 12-year-olds in foster care with her abuser's baby. I saw the ads go up on Backpage and her pimp in a Mercedes, and my own grandmother told me, just remember you're a lady when he leaves you, disrespects you, when he runs around or hits. And I know we're living out the legacy of the slave ships. Sapphires and Jezebels bear breasts and winding hips, so when they rape us in this century, we're just playing out the script, a script that everybody knows. And we all will know again. But there'll still be powerless black girls and rich, powerful men, and what will we say then? We'll stay quiet as a mouse. I mean, there was a pussy-grabbing president right in the White House. There's a rapist on the Supreme Court, and they never kicked him out. Don't think it's just black men we never say a word about. We can shout for young black girls, make films, or say Me Too. But please, don't act surprised, because everybody knew. Last from me. This is my take on Goodnight Moon, if anybody knows.
We're gonna get this kicked in. Can't take a pill to plug.
Where's the babies at? Where's my babies? In a provincial jail,
You're not gonna
there's a little room with a toilet and a sink and a smell of mildew, and a slit of a window with a sliver of the moon and a radio on a shelf playing a tune, and a metal cup, and a metal slug, and a night that's either too cold or too hot, and an officer in a spot by the stairs, and 3 more guards sitting in chairs, and the shadow of the laws that put people in there, and the eye of the camera watching you sitting, and a photocopy picture of your mother and children, and a heart with a hole for the loved ones you're missing, and restless dreams where you wake up shivering, and a door with a lock, and a window with bars, and a corner of the sky showing just 1 star, and a comb and a brush, and a toilet that won't flush, and a guard on his rounds ordering. So good night, room, like a little tune. Good night, window, barely showing the moon. Good night, laws that aren't changing soon. Good night, radio. Good night, me. Good night, pop. Good night, slop. Good night, down in solitary where the world forgot. Good night, sheets tied up in a knot. Good night, bad dreams and regretful thoughts. Good night, clanging doors and the camera shot. Good night, locks. Good night, clock. Good night, countdown to the day you get out of the box. Good night, mildew. Good night, mold. Good night, lights on all night down in the hole. Good night, heart with its little hole. Good night, heat. Good night, cold. Good night, foam mattress. Good night, comb. Good night to the crumpled picture of home. Good night, dripping sink and toilet that won't flush. And good night to the officers ordering. Hush. Good night, patrols. Good night, stare. Good night, outside. Good night, air. Good night, love. Good night, care. Good night, prisoners. Everywhere.
Thank you, Elle Jones, and thank you so much, Carrie Ryan and River. So, I'm going to say some thank yous, and then I'm going to read the last 2 paragraphs of the book. So, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming. Abolition requires us to attend to the bleakness of the now and take up the most hopeful position we could possibly take. And so seeing so many folks here interested in abolitionist work about extreme acts of violence is such an incredibly brave and courageous act of hope. I want to thank the editor, Fazila Jiwa. Can we get Fazila Jiwa? I don't know if is a wizard or a high priestess or just the book doula from heaven, but I spent a lot of time soaking up all the feelings about writing about violence and containing them for me to the process of writing the book. I also, can everyone clap for my mom? My mom is like the OG critical thinker and who introduced us to Buffy Sainte-Marie and told us about the assassination of Annie Mae Aquash when we were really little. So thank you for that, Mom, because I think a lot of folks don't come to the realization the police are dangerous till a lot later, but you helped us out with that. So thanks again to Alter Egos, thanks again to Fernwood, Venus Envy, and hopefully we can all stomp our feet and shake off the feelings and have a beverage together before you leave tonight. Accepting the prevalence and dangers of high-risk intimate partner violence and domestic homicide is a test to our commitment to abolition. It requires us to grapple with the real and present dangers we live with every day. It requires us to admit that even if we defund, disarm, and dismantle the police, legions of settlers will turn up with their guns and militias and enact the same kinds of injustice and violence we are fighting so hard against. Accepting that the dangerous few are actually many and multiple reminds us of the dangers of the work of transformation. It reveals how deep and resistant the architecture of colonialism is within all of us as we remain committed to forms of capitalism that leave us exhausted, impoverished, and struggling. We cannot escape the haunting legacies of domestic homicide unless we take seriously what it would mean to abolish work, occupation, as the central organizing feature of all of our lives. As frightening as it might be for some to think about what would it mean to abolish the police while we face threats to the safety and survival in our own homes, we must admit that the dangers we encounter at home and the existence of police in their current formation are symptoms of the same problem. Yet, how do we intervene without coercion and with care and compassion when someone threatens our very survival? Is this even possible? The answers to these questions need to come from collective organizing and experimentation in our own homes and our own neighborhoods. There is no single answer. For me, answering this question means conceptualizing love and justice as an act of insurgence. When most of us have learned love through a language of subservience, insurgent love understands that care requires love, but transformation might require upheaval and destruction of our previous relations. It's tricky to do these two things at the same time, but it's vital. My understanding of love as insurgents came from working with those who harmed, specifically with youth who were transitioning out of juvenile detention facilities and struggled to feel as if they were capable of being anything other than the bully or killer that they had become to their communities. I learned through working with them that setting boundaries opens up space for them to be a different version of themselves. When coercion doesn't work, we have to try something else to try and obtain the love and security we all desperately need. Setting boundaries takes space for someone to grow in a different direction. Love as insurgents asserts that setting boundaries and saying no to harm is an act of care. Insurgent love as a collective practice reminds us that self-defense or community supervision for those who are dangerous can be an act of compassion rather than just an expression of disposability. Love as insurgents disrupts coercive relations and fights for a future that is defined by care rather than coercion. Insurgent love asks for just relations with those we love the most. Insurgent love as the practice of saying no to coercion is an act of self-love too. This understanding of love, while it might not be meaningful or generative for every reader of the book or every person in this room, has been profoundly helpful for me in understanding my own relationships with people who are harmful and have harmed me. Understanding love as an act of insurgence has helped me to question my relations with others and given me permission to fight back when I need to save myself from harm and coercion. Satia Hartman writes that under heteropatriarchy, violence and rape are terms of order, the norm. They are to be expected. So how does one lust after or relate to want to love another? How does one claim the capacity to touch when touch in so many instances is the modality of violence? Domestic homicide and intimate terrorist relations that so often precede it beg us to sit with what Satia Hartman is asking of us. And by us, I mean those of us who are invested in the dismantling of settler colonialism and racial capitalism. Love, as insurgents, holds space for the renegotiation of what it means to be kin to one another, to share our love and our lives with each other. Thank you for listening. So, we're still open to when? Well, the fridge is full.